What is up, my fellow Chibits? Hopefully all of you are having a very good day today, and hopefully you continue to have many great days ahead. And so with that being said, let's talk about the latest chapter of Boku no Hero Academia. So, before anyone freaks out, I want to do a couple of clarifications, okay? Because I've been hearing it all morning, and I took to Twitter to say my piece, but just in case, I know many of you don't follow me on social media, so I want to state it here. I know for a fact why everybody is freaking out right now after reading this latest chapter, and I will explain why, and I understand why. It actually makes perfect sense why many are freaking out, but at the same time, we gotta remember the other side of this. So, to begin, what is everybody just freaking out about? Well, Eri. Eri as a character, as we know, has already been established to be able to somehow erase quirks. That's what was stated a while back in this arc. Now, obviously, we never got complete clarification of how her ability works. We just know that Overhaul was extracting blood from her and then making these bullets, and that's how the quirks got completely erased. And so, we do know a while back, the quirk erasing bullets, they were not permanent whatsoever. They only lasted for like, a couple hours to a day or so, and then everything was back to normal. It wasn't a long period, and after many months and a lot of research, basically, and years, you had to where Overhaul finally crafted, like, the perfect bullet to where he can completely eliminate, the quirk, gene inside of a person. He just completely attacks it and removes it, and so he finally perfected what he wanted. But it took a lot of time to kind of get the bullets to where he wanted them to be. So it took a lot of research, a lot of engineering, and manipulating with the quirk to be able to get what he wanted. So overall, we never really got the true aspect of what, Eri's quirk really was. We never really knew exactly how it worked, since we know he was engineering and messing with her quirk and her blood and all that to be able to make these bullets. So finally, we get some clarification to exactly what she is capable of and what she can do. And it is the ability to rewind. That is the name that MS gave the quirk in this chapter. Now, from what I'm hearing, apparently there's some form of mistranslation. I don't know exactly too much about it, but I am hearing there is some form of mistranslation. It's supposed to be like undo or something, but I don't really know much about it, so I'm just going to go off of what I read in the chapter, and if I need to correct myself later on, like a couple days from now, I will do so. But for now, though, I'm just going to go off of the translation and talk about why people are freaking out. Well, the thing is, she has the quirk. The name of it is called Rewind. Now, when you think of the name Rewind, obviously you rewind things. And in this case, Eri has the quirk to where she can rewind anything. She can go back and rewind things to a previous state. In this case, when she touches someone or whatever, she can actually rewind their quirk to the point to where it no longer exists, which is what has happened to, Togata, how he lost his quirk. Now, obviously, like I already stated in this video, that Overhaul, he was experimenting to be able to get it to that point to where it can completely remove a quirk for a very long period, or permanently, basically. In this case, Eri, most likely, she might eventually be able to get to the point to where she can select something she wants to rewind, maybe like a certain body part or the quirk in general. But at this time, though, I highly doubt she has control of her quirk to where she can, not control the entirety of the body. Just, putting her hand on someone or, using her quirk on someone and then reverting their entire self. So she probably doesn't have that much control of what she rewinds. However, from finding this out, the reason why people are freaking out is because this ability can actually break the series. It could straight up destroy any threat for Boku no Hero Academia, which makes a lot of sense of why people are freaking out. Because, you see, when you start messing with, like, time-related abilities or healing abilities, deconstruction, reconstruction abilities, or the ability to rewind time, fast-forward time, that's when you get to the point in the shonen or any story to where there becomes a problem. Because when stuff like this is implemented, it can be a very big issue for the later parts of the series. Because time travel is a very fickle thing. Depending on how it's implemented and how it's used, it can really make a lot of plot holes and ruin series. Or in this case, when you have a character that can heal someone or bring people back to life, that can also break a series. There's like no meaning for a character death, and it's why many don't really care for when a character, dies in Dragon Ball, because the Dragon Balls are always there to resurrect someone. So there's no sense of permanent death. There's no threat there overall, unless the entirety of the universe or whatever is wiped out. So that's like the only threats that really matters anymore in that series. And so what I'm getting at is, when it comes to a character that can either bring someone back to life, rewind time, fast forward time, mess with time in any way, this is when a problem pops up, because it can actually destroy a series. Now, this isn't the first time I've seen something like this, and it's not the first time I have seen a series implement a character that can either rewind time, or in some cases reconstruct characters. I mean, think about JoJo, okay? Let's go back to JoJo Part 4, okay? Crazy Diamond. Crazy Diamond has the ability to reconstruct things, okay? And then we have, you know, Kira that was able to deconstruct things, you know, make it explode. And so when you look at these two little things right now, it's obvious that maybe Horikoshi took some inspiration from JoJo. I don't know. I don't know if he's a big fan of JoJo, but basically he might have took some inspiration, and that's what we have going on here. But I do want to get into the main subject of why I'm bringing up JoJo in the first place. I remember when JoJo Part 4 first started, my thoughts of it, I was like, Josuke's stand ability to be able to reconstruct things is very broken, because it's a dangerous ability to have in a series. He's able to probably bring back to life people, bring people back to life, because if he can just, you know, put his hand on them and revert them back into a different state and all that, and they're completely fine, that breaks the series. That breaks all sense of threat for the series, and that is what Eri has going on right now. Her ability is very similar to that. She can completely break the series and any threat whatsoever that we may come to face in the future of the series. So I see why people are freaking out. However, we need to remember something, okay? We need to remember a big thing when it comes to this manga, and that is when it comes to Horikoshi writing quirks, he has a lot of limitations. Limitations have always been there for every ability. Every time a character is introduced, there's always some form of limitation that they have. Ida has his limitations. Todoroki has his limitations. Bakugo has his limitations. Izuku has his limitations. All Might has his limitations. You know, Ochiko has her limitations. Just, the list goes on and on. There's always some form of negative to using a quirk. And it's very rare, very slim when you see a case to where a quirk is completely perfect and there is no limitation whatsoever to it. And so I highly doubt, with how powerful this quirk is and what it could really do to the series, I highly doubt Horikoshi would make a character this broken and not have some form of plan with it. For instance, to add limits to this ability. Now, I want to discuss the actual possibilities that can happen here, okay? So with Eri's ability to rewind time, I'll get into the ability and how it works in a minute, okay? I just want to talk about the paths that can happen. So, with her ability and all that, and let's just go on the fact and say she's broken, okay? Let's believe right now she is completely broken as a character. The only way to fix this, okay, if she truly is broken and can rewind anything, is to get rid of her. She has to go. For instance, death. She has to go. That's the only way you would be able to fix this in a way, if she really is that broken. However, there is another path. If she becomes a villain. Now, let me explain. If she becomes a villain, if Eri becomes a villain, okay, then she can have as broken of a quirk as she wants, because people would feel that threat. Because since she has such a scary quirk, people would be scared, because there is a threat there. She could, at any time, remove someone from existence just by, you know, being near them or touching them or whatever. She can remove them from existence, which would be a very scary thing. And so a sense of threat would still be there if she became a villain. But also, we have to remember this. The League of Villains, they want Eri. They want to capture her. And that is what we have going on here, okay? We have it to where Mr. Compress, he's actually trying to get Eri and then bring her back to the League of Villains. Now, let's just say this happens, okay? Let's say Mr. Compress, he manages to actually get Eri, okay? And bring her back. What does this mean? Well, I want to look at something that's very identical here. We have found out that Eri did make her father disappear from existence. Now, like I said, I'll get into the details of her quirk in a minute, but apparently from what we see from a flashback is she completely eradicated her father. Gone. And if you think about characters that have done this, you could think of Shigaraki. Shigaraki has obviously done the exact same thing to his father. When he was a kid, he didn't know how his ability worked, and he just destroyed his father, disintegrated him completely, and you saw his hand on the ground. We even see a flashback in the latest episode, the last episode of Season 2 of Boku no Hero Academia. So we do know for a fact that Shigaraki has had somewhat of a similar experience, and that's kind of what drove him to be a villain in the first place. So what's to say that Shigaraki might not have a moment like, All For One did? Remember, All For One, he manipulated Shigaraki to be a villain, to become a villain. He manipulated the story and caused all of that to happen. So what's to say, since Shigaraki's supposed to be the next All For One, what's to say that he might not manipulate Eri into becoming a villain? Which would show him developing as a villain, to become the next symbol of evil. That's what I'm getting at. So that is a very likely possibility, since they're so similar in their backstory, that might happen to Eri. She could be manipulated and eventually become a villain. And then the sense of threat would still be there, even if her quirk is OP. Now, the other path that could happen, okay? Let's just say for a fact now, besides if she's not OP, okay? If she is not broken, what could possibly happen here, other path that can, this series can take, is the fact that she might not be able to rewind what she already rewind. Because rewind doesn't work like that. Let's think about a videotape, okay? Or, yeah, just a videotape. Let's just think about it like that. As, a VHS, a videotape, when you rewind it and all that, and your VCR, obviously when you rewind it to a certain point, you can't just rewind it again to fast forward it. Fast forwarding does not equal rewind. Rewinding is one thing, going backwards. And so, if you rewind something, for instance, rewind a quirk out of existence, you can't rewind your rewind. It's not a possibility. It's not a possibility to rewind that. It's kind of like saying you're fast forwarding. So, I highly doubt her quirk can actually rewind what she's already messed with. I don't think that is a possibility. If she's already rewinded a certain thing in someone's body to a certain point, then it cannot be rewind anymore. It's at its original state. It can't go any further whatsoever. So that could be a limitation right there. Eri could probably not change the effects of what has already been changed. So that would mean that Togata would still be lacking his quirk. He would never be able to get his quirk back ever again. It is because she might not be able to fix the things that she already messed with. Because her quirk is not fast forwarding, it's rewind. Now, another thing too. Just because she has the quirk rewind, there is still a lot of things that need clarification about it. We don't know exactly how it completely works. Like I said, we need limits to it, because there has to be some form of limits to it. And in this case, we gotta remember that, basically, with her quirk, when she actually made these bullets, when the bullets were made from her, Togata, he was hit, and his quirk was reverted, okay? He no longer has his quirk. Apparently, from what we know, it's permanently gone. But when you think about everything prior to this, there is a likely possibility that it's not gone, and there is some hope. Now, let me explain why. We know that the bullets, the first bullets, like the prototypes, they only had the quirk gone for like a day or so, which would really go along with Eri's ability to be able to rewind. Because if she can rewind a certain point, maybe a couple of minutes or like an hour or so, because we see Overhaul, kind of dislodged from his henchmen, the 8 expendables and all that, they split, and he becomes his own person again, we can assume that Eri can probably control the amount of time that she can revert something back. In this case, that's how the bullets were a while back. They were something that didn't last too long because she only rewinded, like maybe someone's quirk for a little bit of a time, and then it finally came back once again. And so what we have going on here is the fact that maybe since she reverted Togata's quirk so far back, it might be when he was first born. When he first was born and all that, and he didn't really have his quirk activated, it didn't awaken at all, maybe he has to wait a few years for his quirk to finally activate once again. So it's more along the lines of she reset everything to 0. That's what she did. Everything is 0. She reset it back to the starting point. It's kind of like you have like a 10-mile run, and you finally get your quirk at 5 miles, that's 5 years, and basically, she reset all the way back down to the start. So he has to wait maybe 5 years to get his quirk back, and then probably train with it again to get to the point he was for many years after that. So what most likely is going on here is not the fact that she permanently removed his quirk. She probably lowered it to the point to where it's at its original state to when he was first born. And so he might have hope for his quirk eventually coming back. Now, let's talk about her father for a second, okay? So, we do know that Eri, as I said, her quirk right now, it just finally awakened and all that. She's now finally using it. And we know when she first started using it, her father apparently was eradicated from existence. Now, we don't know exactly what really happened, because when you think about the concept of rewind and the meaning we got with this chapter, it makes you wonder. Did she rewind her father to the point to where he doesn't exist? Or did she rewind him to the point to where he is a fetus? Did they rewind him to the point to where he's microscopic because he was just like a cell within his mother or his father? Or is it something else? So it makes you wonder. For instance, if she reverted the man to the point to where he was like small, like, you know, microscopic size, that would be inside of a human, it would make a lot of sense why nobody would find him, because nobody's going to put a microscope to, like, clothing just sitting there and then seeing, like, a cell or something. So, when you look at what happened to Eri's father, and you really take a moment to think about it, it's pretty dark. It's a really dark outlook on it, and what her ability is really capable of. The ability to revert someone back down to what they originally were, their original state, so to say. So that's why I said there is a possibility maybe that Togata, his quirk, could come back, because if she rewinds things back to 0, it could be a possibility that it comes back. However, if she reverts someone back down to the point to where, like, they're like a cell or something, obviously a cell being outside of a human body, it's not going to last long, it's going to perish. So, from everything we can get from this, most likely Eri did eradicate her father completely, just killed her father, and reverted him down probably to a cell or something, and then died. Or, we don't know if the ability works like this, but there is a possibility maybe the ability is able to transfer someone back into what it previously was. For instance, okay, let's say this. Very similar to how, you know, Crazy Diamond was. You know, in JoJo Part 4, what if, like, let's say you rip a book in half, okay? And Eri puts her hand, or however she uses a quirk, and she puts it, and, like, one half of the book is, like, in one room, and then the other half of the book is, like, 2 rooms away, or whatever, and she decides to revert the book back to its previous state. Does the book, the pieces of the book that's separated, do they come back together, and does it travel over to it? Or does a new portion of the book come out? So would that mean that there is actually 2 copies of the book? Okay, let me explain. In simpler terms, if you were to be... Okay, let's say you were cut in half, okay? You were cut in half completely straight where, the, you know, your waist is. And Eri somehow is able to rewind time to where you're back together once again. Would your 2 pieces of your body that split in half, would they come back together? Or would you have new legs form for your one half? And if she was to touch your leg half, would your upper half form? Or would there be 2 of you? Would there be 2 of you? That's what I'm getting at. So her ability adds a lot of questions here. How does it work? Does she make things go back to where it was and in its previous state? Or does she just revert it and it stays there? Now you could speculate that she doesn't move things back to its previous state because of how Overhaul separated from one of his henchmen. They completely separated and they're back in that same location. So you could assume that maybe not. But even then, it really does make you wonder if someone was to be split in half and she can rewind time, what would happen if she did that to 2 different parts of someone? Would they form 2 different people? It really makes you wonder. It does make you wonder. I don't know if Horikoshi will dive into that aspect of her ability, because that seems like really in-depth and deep, but it makes you wonder. Anyways, though, besides that, let's talk about Eri's awakening, okay? Besides how I said she could possibly become a villain, there is something that really happens in this chapter that's unique, and it holds a lot of weight to what's been going on with Izuku and everybody else that he's been with. He has just inspired someone to become a hero. Let me explain. Togata and Izuku stepped in and was the shining light for Eri and allowed her to finally have some form of hope, a light at the end of the darkness. She managed to try to grab and reach for it, and that's what she did. When she grabbed the cape that was flying through the air, and when she reached for it, it's like she was trying to grasp that light, that hope. That's what she was doing. And when she grasped it, it was kind of like subconsciously she did, but she wanted to have hope. She wanted to be able to not be harmed anymore. And when she looked at Izuku at the end and she awakened, what you can get from that is that Izuku has inspired her down a path of righteousness, has inspired her to be a hero. Do you get what I'm saying? Because as we know, a lot of our characters, they were saved by heroes, and that's kind of what inspired them to want to be a hero. And so since she has seen something so heroic from an individual, she might want to be like them. She might want to become someone that can save others, and that's what she wants to do. She doesn't want to see other people getting hurt. So she could be starting on her path of becoming a hero, and this is Izuku laying down the foundation blocks for her to be a hero in the future after he's already long and gone, and he's no longer the symbol of peace. You get my point. That could be what Horikoshi is designing here with her character. Anyways, though, with all that being said, let's talk about Ryukyu. I think that's her name, the Dragon Lady. So Ryukyu, they're having a tough fight on top of the surface and all that, and this is going to be very quick. This is going to be a very quick segment of the video because there's really not much to talk about. But basically, Ryukyu's fighting, she's being very strong and devastating, which she shows she's one of the top heroes in Japan. Well, you have one of the 8 expendables that were fighting. Apparently, he's able to inhale people's vitality. If he touches you and he inhales, he is able to inhale your vitality, and it buffs him up, he gets stronger, and he's able to continue fighting. So it's very similar to what Overhaul has been doing, except he doesn't need to, you know, hurt himself in any way. For instance, Overhaul, he just blows up an arm that's hurt, refixes it, it's completely fine once again. And so, in a way, it's not as extreme, but he's able to get vitality and continuously fight as long as he has people around him. Like, if he continues to have people just coming at him, he can continuously refuel, restock, and continuously fight for as long as he wants. And so it's a pretty powerful ability. If you're a close-range fighter and you have a lot, like a body, for instance, if you're a dragon and he has a lot to grab, then obviously you're at a disadvantage. So Ryukyu was at a disadvantage in that fight. But it's not just that, though. Basically, when he took that drug that's able to increase their quirk ability, apparently, he no longer was able to, or no longer needed to touch someone to be able to use his quirk. He actually could just inhale and absorb everybody's vitality, which is very strong, very scary, and that explains why the man was just so monstrous and just tanking so much, was because he didn't actually need to touch anyone at that moment for 20 minutes when he was using it. So it came down to Hado coming in to be able to stop this man's rampage and fighting him from a distance, which I find very funny that her ability is kind of like the exact opposite of the dude. The dude is absorbing vitality, bringing it in with him, while Hado, she has a quirk where she shoots out this like little twisty beam which is using her vitality. So, it's really cool. It's like she was in a very bad matchup. In that moment, it's exactly what, you know, many of the arcs in Boku no Hero Academia has been training us for and letting us know, is that when you're up against a villain, most likely you're going to be at a major disadvantage, and that's what Hado was. She was at a big disadvantage in this fight because she didn't have vitality to waste. I mean, she was fighting someone that could absorb her vitality, so she couldn't obviously be giving that up like that willy-nilly because she needed that to be able to use her abilities. So when you look at all of these things, Hado did very good. She had a very bad matchup. Extremely bad matchup, but she did very good. So, that's about it. I mean, we do have Mr. Compress, and, you know, initiating. He's apparently a clone. He doesn't like being used as a pawn. I found that very funny. I also like the fact that, you know, Toga and, you know, Twice, they're initiating their plan, and they're trying to get Eri, so I wonder if that's going to happen. I'm very curious to see if that's going to happen. But that's about it when it comes to the chapter. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you feel about the latest chapter of Boku no Hero Academia? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Please be honest in the comments below. And once again, before I end this video, before you knock Eri and say she's breaking the series and saying that Horikoshi just made a big mistake, just remember, everything that we've already seen prior to this series, or prior to this chapter, I mean, Horikoshi knows how to write a character that has trauma, but he also knows how to add limitations to incredibly broken abilities. Togata. Perfect example. So what I'm getting at is, don't knock it yet until we see exactly how it works and what could possibly happen for the future of the series. So you all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like my video, please leave a like. And if you want to support me where I can continuously focus on YouTube, please support me on Patreon. Link is in the description. And one last thing before I end this video. Apparently many have been telling me that they have not been getting notifications for my videos. So if you're one of those Chibits that have not been getting notifications when I upload a video, then next to the subscribe button down below, there's a bell icon. Click that and you will be able to start getting notifications when I upload a video. So you all have a wonderful day or not wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.